Welcome to First Gen Money, a YouTube channel for all things money and lifestyle from a millennial's perspective. You'll notice that I am not in my usual recording space, and that's just because I moved to another side of the house to reduce the noise that you hear from the construction that's going on upstairs. I actually feel like this is a better location for the conversation we're gonna have today, which is like what to do after you're done paying off your debt. What do you do when you're debt free? And I'm going to be speaking particularly to my experience, what I did. For those of you who don't know my debt payoff story, who don't know my debt story, I graduated in 2015 from school, from university, with over 30K in student loans. And in the 2 years after I had graduated, I didn't really care to pay those off at any speed. I wasn't really thinking about debt freedom and building wealth. But after I had 1 year of full-time work under my belt, I realized that I had made money. I had made actual money. I was like, where did this money go? I have nothing to show for it. And I got serious about money in 2017, and I wanted to pay off my debt. I wanted to build wealth. But initially, that building wealth was really just pay off debt. And I had no credit card debt because I was very adamant about opening credit cards. I did not open any credit cards during school or even like until I had a full-time job. I was always very afraid of opening them because I didn't want to be in further debt. The only debt that I had hanging over me was student loan debt. And a lot of the blogs and podcasts that I was reading, it was people celebrating that they're debt-free. And I was like, well, I want to be debt-free too. I want to like finish off my student loans because why not? That was really my driving purpose. I wanted just to have no debt. And so I embarked on this journey to pay off my student loans, and it was supposed to be a 12-month journey. And that turned into 26 months of a journey because other things came along the way. And I'm not going to get into the other shifting priorities in your financial life, but things like having an emergency fund or building a move out fund, all of those things became ones that I wanted to focus on. And then my student loans kind of didn't fall to the backside. It wasn't the main priorities. And so it did take more than 12 months to pay off my debt. But finally in December of 2019, so last month, I was debt free. I made my last payment. I had no more student loans. I have zero credit card debt, and I was able to build my net worth as well. I entered 2020 debt free. And I didn't really have a plan for how I was gonna handle my debt freedom. I had one vision in mind, and that was saving up for a home. I figured that was the next step. I will be saving for a down payment, and that was just the next goal that I was working on. And so the next tips that I'm gonna give you are really about thinking, okay, now that you paid off your debt, what should you be asking yourself to make sure that you do stay along that path of good financial habits and all of the great things that you learned during your debt freedom journey. The first thing is obviously to celebrate. Celebrate that you paid off your debt, but I want to add an important little part to that celebrate. I want you to celebrate, but also take a break. Take a break to understand what it is that actually matters in your life, what it is that you want to do. I think for me, I rushed quickly into, okay, now that I have no debt, I'm going to save for a home. And I don't even know if right now I'm at that place where I do want to buy, because I don't necessarily want to be tied down to a mortgage. But I didn't take that break after paying off my debt and then trying to save for a home to really think about if this was something that I wanted to do or if this was something I thought I needed to do. And so because I didn't take the break, I feel this is a big reason why I wasn't successful at saving for a home. It wasn't something that was really driving me to do it. I thought that I should do it, and it didn't feel like I was passionate towards doing it. Before you jump into your next goal, the next thing that you're really working hard to, just stop, celebrate what you just did, and think about if that is something that you want to do, if this next goal is something that you want to do, or if it's something that you think you should be doing. Take a break. It doesn't need to be a year-long break. Don't take a year-long break. Take a month, take 2 weeks, but just like chill with it for a second. After you're done chilling with it, number 2 is really to prioritize the different financial goals that you have. Review where you are. Did you stop contributing to retirement accounts when you were paying off debt? If so, how are you doing in terms of retirement? And are you contributing enough to meet the match? What is your emergency fund looking like? Do you have 3 to 6 months saved for an emergency? You know, if you were to lose your job today, like, can you survive? Or would you have to take on additional debt? Have you put sinking funds in place? Do you have things that you are actively saving for to avoid having and needing to make like bigger purchases that you then need to put on a credit card? So create those sinking funds, whatever they are. Take a look at all of those different aspects of your financial life and see what needs to be prioritized. If you don't have an emergency fund, then beef up that emergency fund. You need to have something that'll protect you if you were to be laid off. If you haven't been saving for retirement, how much can you contribute towards that? And then for your sinking funds, you know, some of them might not be necessary, like a Christmas fund. Yes, we can create a Christmas fund for 12 months from now to have X amount to save for Christmas gifts. But if you don't have an emergency fund, then maybe shrink that Christmas gift sinking fund and shift some of those funds to your emergency fund, because that's something that you need to take care of first, right? You should be thinking about what is going to keep you afloat and what is going to keep you from going into debt before you think about things that maybe you want to purchase for other people, because that's just who you are. And that's fine. You can get gifts for people, but also you need to make sure that your financial house is not going to come crumbling down because you don't have an emergency fund. So figure out what your financial priorities are. Figure out where you are right now. Number 3 is to review your budget. So now that you paid off debt, all the money that you were putting towards your debt can be used for any of the financial goals that we just discussed or whatever else that you want to be saving for. So if you have the emergency fund, the sinking funds, and the investments taken care of, like now you can think about, okay, with this money, do I want to start saving for other goals? And this can be, again, whatever you reflected on is best for you, not what you think you should do next, right? So what is that you want to save for? Do you want to save for a year-long trip abroad? Do you want to save for a house, if that's the case? Do you want to save for a big vacation? What are all those things? Move that budget around to make sense to fulfill those goals that you have in mind. Because the truth is, if you don't do anything with that line item, you are probably going to spend it on things you won't remember. So plan ahead for what you want to do with that money. If you don't do anything with the amount of money that you were putting into debt, then it's going to decide for itself where it wants to go. And you won't have a choice in where it goes because you didn't plan ahead of time. So take the time to really sit there and decide where you want that money to go. And just like you created systems for paying off your debt, create systems for saving for the next thing that you want. Number 4 is to avoid going into debt again. Of course, not all debt is bad. People take on mortgages even after they pay off their student loan debt because maybe the interest rate is very low and it's attractive and they need it. But really, when I say don't take on debt, I mean, be careful with going into the habits that got you into debt in the first place. Even if it was student loan debt, like just be very mindful because you know how long it took you to get out of debt. For instance, I am enrolled in a CFP program. I want to become a certified financial planner. And when I was doing research on this in 2018, 2019, I realized it wasn't cheap and that I might need to take on a loan to even do the program. And I did not want to do that. I was like, there's no way I'm going to take on another student loan. And the next thing was to really save up for it. And I had other financial goals. So I thought about what I can do to make sure that I didn't have to go into debt for it, that I didn't have to reprioritize other goals for it, and I found scholarships for it. And so that's why I was able to go into a CFP program without really putting in any of my own dollars, because I got 2 scholarships and I took the time to research what programs were available to be able to do this at zero to low cost for me. And whatever the case may be for you, really try the hardest to not go into debt, which is why I think it's so important to make sure that you have an emergency fund, because sometimes when people don't have that emergency fund, they resort to using their credit cards to pay for things. I'm not saying that you can never take on debt ever in your life, because the truth is we're all going to have to take on some kind of form of debt at some point if we want to buy a house, if we want to start a business and we need a small business loan. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I want you to be really strategic about how you use debt. Don't use debt because you have no other option. Use debt to your advantage. Use debt to get travel rewards. Use debt if you want to build up your assets. But it's very easy right after we pay off a big amount of debt to celebrate, to want to take trips that we maybe haven't planned for, and then creating a debt situation that we need to, again, pay off. You don't want to be in a vulnerable situation where you need to take on debt and then you can't pay that debt off all at once. Because then you're in this cycle of, yes, I pay off debt, but then I pick up debt and then I'm paying it off again. And that's not what life is about. Life is not about paying bills. I hope this video was helpful. If you have anything that you did differently after paying off your debt, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit that like button. I will be making another video about just my debt journey and what I did to pay off the $26K in 26 months and everything else that came along the way. So if you're really interested in watching that, make sure you subscribe so you can get notified when my next video comes out. All right, I'll see you next time.